She lied about her salary to get a bigger inheritance, then secretly transferred $250, $0 of our savings to her sister, and now she's suing me over the house I inherited from my parents. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, laying it all out in the open. It started with small signs, little things that didn't add up. My wife Lisa had always been a bit of a bitch, but she was also charming when she wanted to be. Over the past few months, though, her attitude shifted. She became more secretive, more dismissive. She'd hide her phone when I entered the room, and her excuses for being busy with work got more elaborate. Honestly, I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was stressed or just overwhelmed with her job. She always claimed she was doing important things and that I should trust her. Yeah, right. One day I noticed her acting strangely during a phone call. She was whispering and her face looked tense. I didn't think much of it until I saw her hurriedly delete a message right after hanging up. That was odd. Then I caught her sneaking into the bedroom with her phone late at night, and I decided to follow her one evening. I hid behind the door as she tiptoed out of the bedroom, her phone in hand, and headed to the basement. That's when I found her meeting with some guy, Jake. I later learned, at first glance, I thought it was just a business meeting because she claimed to be working on some new project. But the way she was whispering and touching him told me otherwise. What really hit me hard was when I saw her kiss him goodbye, her hand lingering on his chest. My stomach clenched. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe Lisa, the woman I'd trusted with everything, was cheating on me with some guy I didn't even know. I didn't want to confront her right then. I needed time to process what I'd seen. But the anger and betrayal bubbled up so fiercely I couldn't ignore it anymore. The next day I started digging. I knew I had to get to the bottom of this. I checked our bank accounts, and that's when I found out she'd transferred $250, $0 of our savings to her sister. That was a huge chunk of money, money we'd been saving for years, and suddenly it was gone, transferred without my knowledge or consent. When I confronted her about it, Lisa shrugged it off, saying it was an investment she made on her own. She lied effortlessly, claiming she was just helping out her sister because was struggling and needed a loan. But I knew better. I knew she'd been lying about her salary too. She told me she made $80, $0 a year, but I found out she'd been earning more, and she'd lied about her income to get a bigger inheritance from her parents. And then things got even messier. I discovered that she'd been secretly suing me over the house I inherited from my parents, claiming she had a right to half, even though I was the sole beneficiary. It felt like my entire life was collapsing around me. All those years I trusted her, and now I was faced with this tangled web of lies, betrayal, and greed. I felt numb. The woman I loved, the woman I married, turned out to be nothing more than a con artist, a manipulative bitch who was using me and taking everything she could get her hands on. I was furious, devastated, and confused all at once. How did I let this happen? How did I miss all the signs? I kept asking myself those questions, but deep down, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let her get away with this. I started planning my next move, but I didn't tell her I knew everything. I needed to be smart about this. I wanted her to feel the weight of her lies, to see her realize I wasn't some fool she could manipulate. I had to make her pay for what she did, and I knew I would. I was already thinking about a way to turn her own game against her, to expose her for the liar and the cheat she was. That's how I found myself sitting in my office late at night, staring at the mountain of evidence. I'd gathered screenshots, bank statements, her messages, and feeling a strange mixture of heartbreak and cold determination. This wasn't just about money or the house anymore. It was about justice. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd taken it all for herself. Now, I was going to make sure she paid the price. After I had all the evidence laid out in front of me, I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. Lisa was the kind of woman who always acted like she was the person in the room, but I wasn't going to be played anymore. My mind was racing. I had to think about how to approach her, how to catch her off guard, and most importantly, how to make her regret everything she'd done. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and a strange sense of clarity. I never thought I'd feel this way about my wife, but I was done being naive. The first thing I did was confront her directly, though I kept my cards close to my chest. I waited for the right moment when she was alone, which wasn't hard because she was always glued to her phone or laptop. I chose a quiet evening when she was in the kitchen cooking. I sat down across from her, took a deep breath, and just laid it all out. I told her I knew about the affair, the money transfer, and the lawsuit she was filing over the house. Her face didn't change much at first, just a brief flicker of annoyance when I mentioned the money. She looked at me as if I was crazy. "Honestly, you're overreacting," she said, scoffing. "You're just jealous because I've been working so hard and you don't understand how complex my business deals are. You're just paranoid." She rolled her eyes, then added, "And I don't know what you're talking about with the money. You're imagining things, needed help, and I was just doing what any sister would do." Her tone was dismissive, but I could see the flicker of guilt behind her eyes. She was trying to deny everything, to brush it off like it was nothing. That only made me angrier. I pointed to the evidence on my phone and her expression faltered just a little. "You lied about your salary," I said coldly. "You lied about everything. You're not the person I thought I married. You've been cheating, stealing, and now you're trying to take my house, my inheritance from me. How could you do this?" Her face twisted in anger, then in frustration. She started yelling, claiming I was just accusing her because I was insecure, that I didn't understand how much she was doing for us. She insisted she loved me, but her words sounded hollow, like she was just trying to spin her way out of it. I'd heard enough. I told her I wanted her out of the house, that I was done with her lies. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, her sneaking around, the transfers, the lawsuit, the lies. It all felt like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. I was devastated, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I finally saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd been using me from the start. I knew I had to act fast to protect what was mine. I started consulting with a lawyer the next day, knowing that the legal battle over the house and the money wasn't going to be easy. Lisa was cunning, and I had to be smarter than her if I wanted to win. While I was dealing with the legal side, I also started planning how to expose her to our friends and family. I wanted everyone to see her for who she really was. I'd kept quiet for so long, trying to protect her, but I realized I couldn't keep covering for her lies anymore. The more I uncovered, the more I saw how deeply she'd betrayed me, not just emotionally, but financially and legally. It was like she'd built a whole web of deception around her, and I was stuck right in the middle of it. My heart was heavy, but I knew I couldn't let her see me break. I had to stay strong, even as I felt my world crumbling. I started gathering everything I could, texts, emails, bank statements, and I decided that I'd fight for what was rightfully mine. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything she'd stolen. I was determined to expose her for the lying, cheating bitch she was. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this was just the beginning. She thought she could manipulate her way out of everything, but I was going to make sure she paid for every lie, every betrayal. And so I sat there that night, staring at the stack of evidence, feeling the weight of everything I'd discovered. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, lawyers, court dates, maybe even public humiliation, but I was ready for it. I'd been betrayed so deeply that I promised myself I wouldn't let her ruin me. I was going to fight for my home, my money, my dignity. And somehow I knew I'd come out on top. Over the next few days, I threw myself into planning my next moves. The legal route was clear. I needed to get a restraining order, stop her from selling or transferring anything else, and prepare for a messy court battle over the house and the money she had stolen. I also started reaching out to a lawyer who told me I had a strong case, especially with the evidence I'd gathered. But even as I prepared for the legal fight, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, of being played for a fool. Lisa was so good at lying, so convincing when she wanted to, that I'd convinced myself I was paranoid. Turns out I wasn't just paranoid, I was right. One afternoon, I decided I needed to confront her again. I wanted her to know I wasn't backing down. I sat her down in the living room, my heart pounding, and laid everything out in detail. I told her I knew about her affair, the transfer, the lawsuit, and the lies about her income. I told her I had all the proof on my phone and my computer. Her face twisted with rage when I mentioned the money. She started yelling, calling me a jealous, insecure loser who couldn't handle her success. She accused me of trying to control her, of being too possessive. She even had the nerve to say I was the one cheating, because I'd been working late sometimes, or so she claimed. But I'd had enough. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her she was a liar, a thief, and a manipulator, that I was done playing her game. Her response was classic Lisa. She burst into tears, claiming she loved me, that she'd only done all this because she was trying to help her sister and get ahead. In life, she begged me to forgive her, to forget everything, but I wasn't falling for it. I told her the only thing I wanted was her out of the house, and I wanted her to leave everything she'd stolen behind. I didn't want her to take one more cent or one more lie. She looked at me with pure venom, then stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. That moment was a turning point. She realized I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like my entire world was crashing down around me. I'd loved Lisa, or at least I thought I did. Seeing how she'd lied, cheated, and betrayed me made me question everything. I trusted her with my life, my money, my future, and she'd taken it all for herself. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, feeling numb and angry at the same time. How could she do this? How could she look me in the eye and lie so effortlessly? I was heartbroken, but I also knew I had to be strong for myself. I couldn't let her see that she'd broken me completely, even though that's exactly how I felt. In the quiet moments, I started thinking about what I wanted to do next. I knew I couldn't stay married to someone like her, not after everything. I decided that I would fight for my rights, for my house, and for the money she'd stolen. I also made up my mind to tell our friends and family the truth about her affair, her greed, her lies. I wanted everyone to see her for what she really was, a dishonest, selfish woman who'd used me and then thrown me away. I wasn't going to let her spin her web of lies anymore. I was done being the victim. From that moment on, I'd take control of my life, no matter how painful it was. I felt a strange sense of clarity mixed with rage. Lisa thought she was smarter than everyone, that she could get away with anything because she was manipulative. But I was starting to see through her facade. I knew her weaknesses, her secrets, her lies. The more I uncovered, the more confident I became that I could win this battle. I wasn't just fighting for my house or my money. I was fighting for my dignity. I had to rebuild my life, and I knew I'd have to do it without her. That realization was both terrifying and liberating. I couldn't wait to see her face when she finally realized she'd lost everything she'd tried to steal from me. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not this time. The legal process kicked into high gear faster than I expected. I had my lawyer draw up the necessary paperwork to freeze her accounts, stop any further transfers, and prepare for the court battle over the house. I was determined to get a restraining order, not just to keep her away from the house, but also to prevent her from dumping or hiding any more of my assets. The more I learned about her schemes, the angrier I got. She'd been planning this for months, lying about her salary, secretly transferring money, and now trying to fight me over what's legally mine. It was almost like she thought she could manipulate her way out of everything, but I was done playing along. One night, I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, knowing she'd try to spin her stories again, or maybe even try to destroy some evidence. I wanted her to think she was still in control while I was gathering everything I could to take her down. I sat there in the dark, watching her come home late from work, her phone glued to her hand. When she finally settled down, I pressed record. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this. The next day, I showed her the footage. Her face went pale. She tried to deny it at first, but I had the proof. Her sneaking around, whispering on the phone, meeting with Jake in the basement. When I laid it all out for her, her composure cracked. She started yelling, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying on her because I was insecure. She said I was overreacting, that I was just jealous because she was more successful than me. That was her usual line, trying to make me feel like I was the one at fault, that I was the jealous loser. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her that her lies, her greed, and her affair were the reasons I couldn't trust her. I explained that the money she transferred to her sister was a theft, that her lawsuit over the house was illegal, and that I had enough evidence to take everything she'd done to court. She was still trying to spin her stories, crying and pleading, but I just looked at her and told her I'd had enough. She was out of chances. I told her she needed to leave, and I informed her that I was going to take legal action to protect what's mine. That night I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief because I finally knew the truth and I'd taken steps to fight back. Dread because I knew this was only the beginning of a long, ugly battle. I'd never been in a situation like this before, fighting for my house, my savings, and my reputation. But I also knew I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. I was ready to face whatever came next, whether it was court, her accusations, or her trying to manipulate her way out of it. I refused to be the victim anymore. In the days that followed, I kept gathering evidence. I contacted a forensic accountant to trace the money she'd transferred to, showing how she'd lied about her income to get the inheritance, then took a huge chunk of our savings without my consent. I also started preparing my statement for court, outlining everything she'd done: her affair, her lies about her income, her illegal lawsuit, and her theft of our money. I wanted the judge to see the full picture. I wanted her to understand how deeply she'd betrayed me, how much she'd stolen from us both. Meanwhile, Lisa was trying to spin her version of events. She'd tell anyone who would listen that I was controlling, jealous, and insecure. She'd claim I was trying to ruin her reputation, that I was just bitter because she'd outshined me professionally. But I didn't care about her lies anymore. I knew the truth, and I was determined to make her face it. I was done being her pawn, her victim. This was my fight now, and I was going to win it. The more she tried to manipulate, the more I saw through her. I realized she thought she could get away with everything because she was good at lying, but I had the evidence to prove otherwise. I also started reaching out to some of her friends, people she'd lied to, people who thought she was the perfect wife. I wanted them to see her for what she really was. I wanted her to lose her support system, her credibility. I knew this was going to get messy, but I didn't care. I'd been betrayed enough. All I wanted was to reclaim what was mine and to make sure she paid for her lies and her greed. I was tired of feeling helpless. From here on out, I was taking control. No more secrets, no more lies, just the truth and my fight to get my life back. The court date finally came, and I was nervous but also determined. I had everything prepared: my evidence, my timeline, witnesses if needed. Lisa showed up looking smug, like she still thought she had the upper hand. She was dressed to impress, but I could see the flicker of fear in her eyes when she realized I had more than enough proof. As the judge called the case, I felt a strange mix of adrenaline and exhaustion. This wasn't just about money or the house anymore. It was about justice, about making her accountable for everything she'd done. When I took the stand, I laid it all out: her lies about her salary, the affair with Jake, the transfer of our savings, and her illegal lawsuit over the house. I presented the evidence meticulously, showing bank statements, texts, emails, and the footage from my hidden camera. I saw her squirm in her seat as I recounted her deception, her manipulation. I could tell the judge was paying close attention, especially when I explained how she'd lied about her income to get a bigger inheritance, then secretly transferred $250,000 to her sister. It was clear she was trying to cheat the system, and I made sure the court saw every detail. Lisa tried to deny everything at first, claiming I was misinterpreting her actions, that I was just jealous and paranoid. But I didn't let her get away with it. I countered every lie, showing how she'd been planning this all along. Her face turned red as I exposed her schemes, her affair, her money transfers, her legal tactics. I explained how her actions had damaged me emotionally and financially, and I asked the court to order her to return the stolen money, stop her from further legal actions over the house, and to keep her away from me. The judge listened carefully and finally made a ruling. She ordered Lisa to pay back the $250, $0 she transferred to her sister, plus damages for the legal harassment over the house. She also granted me sole ownership of the house, citing the evidence of her illegal lawsuit and her deceit. Lisa was furious. She yelled, called me a liar, and accused me of trying to ruin her. But the judge wasn't swayed. In the end, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Justice was served, and I finally had a measure of peace. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Lisa was served with the court's order, and she was forced to return the money she'd stolen. Her legal actions over the house were dismissed, and I was awarded full control. I moved out of the house, not because I wanted to, but because I knew I needed space from her. I started the long process of rebuilding my life, focusing on my work and my mental health. The betrayal had cut deep, but I refused to let it define me. I cut all ties with Lisa, blocking her from my life entirely. I knew she'd try to come back to manipulate or guilt me, but I was done. I'd learned a hard lesson. Trust is fragile, and some people will do anything to take what isn't theirs. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown through this nightmare. I learned to trust my instincts, to be more cautious with who I let into my life, and to stand up for myself. I also learned that sometimes the truth is the only thing that can set you free, even if it's painful. I don't regret fighting for what's mine, even if the process was brutal. I've come out of this stronger, more cautious, and more aware of the kind of person I want to be. To anyone out there dealing with betrayal or deceit, trust your gut. Gather your evidence. Don't be afraid to fight for your rights, no matter how impossible it seems. The truth may be hard to face, but it's the only way to truly move on. And believe me, once you face the storm, the sun will shine again. I'm not perfect and I still have scars, but I know now that I deserve honesty and respect. And I'll make damn sure I get it from here on out. After everything was settled legally, I felt like I could finally breathe again. The house was mine, the money was returned, and Lisa was out of my life for good. But even with the court orders and the legal victory, the emotional scars lingered. I spent a lot of time reflecting on what had happened, trying to piece together how I let it get so far. Part of me still felt the sting of betrayal, how someone I loved and trusted could turn out to be so manipulative and selfish. But another part of me was grateful I had caught on in time, that I fought back and didn't let her destroy everything I'd worked for. Living alone now, I've had to rebuild my sense of stability. I invested in therapy, trying to process the anger and sadness. I realized I'd been naive for too long, trusting her blindly when I should have been more cautious. But I also learned to listen to my instincts, to trust myself more. I started focusing on my career, on the things that truly matter, my health, my peace of mind, and my future. The betrayal taught me hard lessons about honesty, boundaries, and the importance of being vigilant. The experience changed how I view relationships. I don't trust easily anymore, and I'm less willing to ignore red flags. But I also know that not everyone is like Lisa. There are good people out there, and I'm open to finding someone who values honesty and loyalty. For now, I'm just taking it day by day, rebuilding what was broken, and making sure I never let anyone manipulate me that way again. I've realized that some people are just good at hiding their true selves until it's too late, and the best defense is awareness and self-respect. Looking back, I see how much I've grown from this nightmare. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. I've learned that standing up for yourself, even when it's hard, is the only way to reclaim your life. I hope my story can serve as a warning to others. Trust is fragile, and some people will do whatever it takes to get what they want, even if it means lying, cheating, and betraying those closest to them. But in the end, truth and justice can prevail if you're willing to fight for it. Now, I focus on healing and moving forward. I've cut ties with Lisa completely, and I'm committed to rebuilding my life on my own terms. The pain will always be there, but so will my strength. And I know that, no matter what, I'll come out stronger on the other side. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that teach us the most about ourselves. I'm finally learning to trust again, just a little more carefully, and that, for now, is enough.